let's jump right into this explainer, because today we're tackling something that is, frankly, absolutely terrifying. We're looking at the massive, dangerous mismatch between algorithmic processing speeds and human cognition in modern warfare. We're literally standing at a precipice here. Military tech is advancing at wartime speed, but our actual understanding of the risks, it's lagging way, way behind.
So we really need to ask the big question. What actually happens when the military hands over lethal targeting to hyperfast, completely opaque artificial intelligence? And to be clear, we're not just talking about, smarter drones or better radar. We are talking about delegating the most consequential decision a human being can possibly make, the decision to use lethal force, to systems that process information in ways we can't even begin to comprehend. And why does this matter to us? Because the specific ways these systems fail could inadvertently trigger an absolute global catastrophe.
Section 1, the Flash War Threat. To really grasp the battlefield of the future, we have to look back at a pretty wild event from our recent past. Think back to May 6, 2010. High-frequency trading algorithms on Wall Street started interacting with each other in ways their human creators absolutely never predicted. And within just 5 minutes, they wiped out $1 trillion in market value. $1 trillion. That was the infamous flash crash. Now, take that exact same dynamic and map it directly onto a modern battlefield. Picture opposing military AI systems, both programmed to aggressively hunt for a tactical advantage, just interacting out there in the wild, unstructured environment of war. Without human constraints acting as a brake, a tiny, minor skirmish could trigger a completely automated chain reaction. We're talking about an escalation into a major global conflict in literally a matter of seconds. A true flash war.
Okay, Section 2, inside the black box. Let's unpack the actual tech driving this massive military shift. Modern AI, as you probably know, relies heavily on deep learning and neural networks. These systems aren't just following some basic set of programmed if-then rules. They learn from oceans of data, creating these incredibly complex nonlinear models with millions of parameters. And that right there creates the black box problem. These neural networks aren't just smart, they are fundamentally uninterpretable. Imagine being a military commander. You get a targeting recommendation from an AI, but zero explanation for why it picked that target. The system's reasoning is a total black box. You just get the output, no working out.
And here is the really crucial point. These black box systems do not fail gracefully. They suffer from what's called brittle competence. Let's break down these vulnerabilities. First, you've got distributional shift. Imagine an algorithm trained perfectly on aerial imagery from, say, Houston. You drop that same system into the snowy forests of Eastern Europe, and it might confidently misclassify everything it sees. Then there's the active threat from adversaries. Data poisoning is exactly what it sounds like. An enemy corrupting the training data, so the AI systematically mistakes civilian vehicles for military ones. Or my personal favorite, adversarial inputs. Researchers have literally proven you can trick a state-of-the-art AI into misclassifying a stop sign just by slapping a few pieces of tape on it. In an actual combat scenario, you better believe an adversary is going to actively weaponize every single one of these flaws.
Which brings us to Section 3, speed versus human intuition. All of this builds into a massive, undeniable physical problem: the sheer speed of conflict. We are comparing the microsecond processing time of machines against the hard biological limits of human situational awareness. Algorithms operate in microseconds. To put that into perspective, in a single human eye blink, 100,000 microseconds pass by. Boom, done. So when AI systems dictate the operational tempo, the pace of action completely eclipses our ability to make decisions.
Let's look at the real-world consequences of this insane speed mismatch. 10 seconds. Back in 2003, during Operation Iraqi Freedom, there were these tragic Patriot missile-friendly fire incidents. The human operators had less than 10 seconds from the moment the system detected a target to actual kinetic contact. Sure, the humans were technically in control, but that extreme time pressure triggered automation bias. They implicitly trusted the machine because, well, they literally didn't have the time to double-check its math, and it resulted in fatal errors.
Now compare that 10 seconds to this number: 5 seconds. Cognitive science research tells us that 5 seconds is the absolute bare minimum window required for a human being to perceive a system's recommendation, assess the surrounding context, build situational awareness, and actually effectively intervene. Anything less than 5 seconds, you aren't making a decision anymore. You're just a spectator watching a machine make one for you.
Let's look at Section 4, the responsibility gap.
This severe lack of time creates an unprecedented ethical and legal crisis in warfare. It really highlights the critical difference in how militaries view control. You've got human in the loop, where a system explicitly waits for human approval before doing anything. Then there's the middle ground, on the loop, where a human supervises an autonomous system and can supposedly jump in and intervene. And finally, fully out of the loop, where the machine selects and engages targets entirely on its own. And make no mistake, the trend right now is rapidly pushing toward that fully autonomous side of the spectrum. But we really need to talk about the dangerous illusion of that middle ground, being on the loop. Under the immense pressure and totally compressed decision windows of modern combat, this oversight model completely collapses. It just degrades into mere ratification of whatever the machine wants to do. Because of that automation bias we talked about, humans stop acting as supervisors and essentially become rubber stampers. They're effectively transferring the authority to use lethal force right back to the algorithm. This illusion of control directly clashes with our foundational legal frameworks. International Humanitarian Law, or IHL, isn't just some simple checklist you can code into a machine. It demands incredibly nuanced context. It requires the principles of proportionality and distinction. That means a commander has to exercise subjective, human judgment to distinguish a combatant from a civilian, or a legitimate military target from a hospital. A binary, black box AI model that can't even explain its own reasoning, it simply cannot fulfill the subjective, context-heavy requirements of international law. It creates this massive responsibility gap where, at the end of the day, no human can truly be held accountable. Moving to Section 5, the Precautionary Principle. Now, fortunately, we don't actually have to wait for a full-scale disaster to do something about this. There are concrete policy frameworks available to us right now. Applying the precautionary principle is absolutely vital here. Basically, this principle states that when you're dealing with a potentially catastrophic threat to civilian populations and global stability, you don't need absolute 100% scientific certainty to take preventative action. The immense risks of brittle, unpredictable AI interacting at machine speed totally justify immediate regulation. We need to act before lethal autonomous weapon systems are operating entirely beyond our control. To mitigate this literal existential risk, policy experts are proposing 3 immediate safeguards. Number 1, mandate human-in-the-loop time delays. We need a statutory floor of at least 5 seconds so humans actually have the cognitive bandwidth to step in. Number 2, install automated circuit breakers. Think about it. Just like financial regulators did after the Wall Street flash crash, militaries need mechanisms that automatically pause operations if conflict intensity spikes abnormally. And number 3, enact outright preemptive bans on fully lethal autonomous weapon systems. Keep humans firmly in the decision-making seat, no exceptions. It all really comes down to this core truth. The legal rules underlying our interactions were written from an unmistakably human perspective. Ultimately, the laws of war, the concepts of deterrence and de-escalation, they were all designed around human bargaining, human judgment, and frankly, human fear. Machines do not feel fear. They don't understand the complex political value of a ceasefire, and they definitely don't understand the tragedy of collateral damage. They only know how to optimize for their programmed tactical goals. Which brings us to our final thought. As military AI continues to advance at just a breakneck pace, driven by intense geopolitical competition, we're forced to confront a really profound question. Is the promise of faster reaction times in combat actually worth sacrificing the very human judgment that keeps a localized skirmish from spiraling into a global catastrophe? Like, are we truly willing to surrender our terminal control to a machine? That's the big question I want you to take away from this explainer today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.